Bishop Dr. David Oginde is the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Okay, Bishop Emeritus, Dr. David Oginde. Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation again.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here once again.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have a conversation about ethics. Our previous guest, Advocate Elisha Ngoya, kept telling us and reminding us once, twice, I think number of like 6 times, when we're talking about impeachment and how we get good leaders, he said, you know what, in all these cases, there's no substitution for good manners.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will segue right into the conversation we'll have. But to welcome you to the show, City has the day's proverb, and this week's proverbs are from Namibia.
The Republic of Namibia.
It's the Republic of Namibia.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
A little rain each day will fill the rivers to overflowing.
A little rain each day will fill the river to overflowing. Bwana Chairman, what's the interpretation of this proverb?
Kidogo kidogo hujaza kibaba.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Swahili would say.
That's a good translation. What's the interpretation of the proverb?
That little things that sometimes may look very insignificant can make a very big difference in the long run if left to, accumulate. So it's both a positive and a negative proverb in my view. Swahili again, usipo ziba ufa tajenga ukuta. If you don't deal with a crack, you may end up building the wall. Again, because sometimes these small things are ignored and they can grow up to be big issues. So on the negative side is that anything small that is negative and left on its own can become a big problem that eventually you may not even be able to tackle. But on the positive is that the little coins we sometimes ignore and throw or leave at the till, if you keep them little by little, you may soon find you have millions. So on the positive side, don't ignore the little that you have. It could add up to something big. That's what I understand from that proverb.
It's a very good understanding. It's a very good understanding. When you say it's both negative and positive, it's absolutely true. Because even if you look at what we may say ails this country, it didn't start as some big event.
No.
It's little things, a little here, and it just kept building.
Yeah.
A little change here, a little accommodation here, a little understanding here, a little looking the other way here, and then you look up, and then you have this monster staring at you.
Yep.
Yes, but it didn't start as a monster.
No.
It grew as we watched.
Yes, we did. And we kept calling it something else, and yet it was showing us exactly what it was all along.
Right.
But we refused to acknowledge that what it was showing us is what it actually is.
Yeah.
Until you have no option but to admit that actually this is it.
True.
You kind of admitted something like that the other day when you said, and it's not fast growing, but has turned into, that Kenya has now turned into a valueless society. It's on the path to becoming a valueless society. So we're dealing with a little bit more than a crack.
Yeah.
The wall is about to come down from what you were saying.
Yes.
What points you to say something like that? What are you seeing that would say, okay, yes, we can say this is the reason?
I was saying that in the context as a graduation ceremony speaker and looking at the education sector in a season when we were just going through just completed the 2 primary school exams and then now into the secondary school exam. And the education sector is an area where we have seen these little negative things happening that have now become huge. Cheating in exams is almost expected. That's why we mobilize for primary school exams and secondary school exams. We almost mobilize the whole army of the country to supervise that. I don't know about you, but myself, when we were doing CPE at the time exams, there was no single presence of any police officer anywhere. There were just one or two invigilators.
Yep.
Our headmaster went to the local division headquarters, picked the exams the previous day, tied on his bicycle, and rode back. And the following day, we were doing exams. There was no thought that this can be stolen or somebody may open it before time and so on. And it was just normal. Now we have come to the place where even with the seals and the containers and so on, we still have to have security officers. You have to mobilize the whole government to be involved in this exam supervision. And you ask yourself, where did little children in primary school learn about stealing exams? Little children in primary school. It is not them. It is their parents who buy these exams. It is their teachers who sell these exams. It is some unscrupulous people who do that. And it has become almost normal for that to happen, so that if there is no protection, as it were, the exam would actually be flooded all around the country for people to see. And you take that all the way. I teach at a university. And you find that even at that level, there are students who do not want to do the work. They just want to get the degree. And it goes beyond that. There are people who have never seen the inside of a university, but have degree certificates that they want to present to get jobs. And we have seen that at the lowest levels, at the highest levels. Where I sit in the Anti-Corruption Commission, one of the things we deal with is cases of people who have got jobs using fake certificates. And it is not 2, 3, 4. It's in the hundreds cases that come to us. And you wonder, why would anybody want to get a job for which they are not qualified? So when you look at all that, then this is just one sector of education. You realize that we have lost any sense of integrity. We have to have a body like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to help us do the right thing. That tells you that there's a problem. If you go into your house where you find parents shouting at children, sit down, do this, don't go there, don't touch that, they have locked the fridge, they have, there's something wrong in this house, that is not normal. So that is where I see our country, we are at. And if we don't do something, we are going to degenerate into a worse situation. So that is where I was coming from.
That's where you're coming from.
Yes.
Why did the rain start beating us? I'm sure you've had time to reflect and ask yourself, you've gone back into your own days sitting the primary exam to date. Why do you think the rain started beating us?
Somebody asked me that question, and I began to reflect and wonder what actually happened. And I could trace it back into the late 80s, into the 90s, when we began to have mega corruption in this country, and things were happening, and it's like they are overlooked. And so it began to become normal. That is when you talk about corruption. I'm afraid to say the matatu set for us a culture. So we actually have become a matatu culture nation, where when I first came to Nairobi, buses used to stop only at bus stops, Kenya buses, I mean. When an older person enters the bus, if you're a younger person, you stood and gave them the seat. And things like that. You went to the toilets in the public spaces. There were all these signs showing Cho toilet, and you would go and look for them and go to the toilet. Then come this culture of matatus can stop anywhere, they can pick passengers anywhere, they can overtake you, they can go in front of you, and so on. And initially, the ordinary person driving their private car would be very irritated but stay on the lane. Then with time, we realize that if you stay on the lane, you will not get there, at least not in good time. So we followed. And that has gone into almost every sector. You go to a banking hall, people don't want to queue. You go to pay your electricity bill, you don't want to queue. You want to find out who can help you go around this quickly. So the culture of shortcuts has come upon us, albeit slowly, just like the proverb said, but now it's becoming an El Nino upon us that is now wiping us out. So this culture of shortcuts, get things quickly, get rich quickly, impatience on the road, impatience in every place where we are, is now what is driving us, and it's become a culture. In fact, when you do good, you are the one who is on the wrong. You know, I've been hit many times talking about roads because I stopped at the red lights, and somebody expected that I should be going. So when I braked and stopped to wait for the red light, they were shocked. They
ram into you.
Yeah. So it's a culture that is eating our nation, I must say.
So is it economy, capitalism?
I don't think so. There are many we are not the only capitalist country in the world. There are many good capitalist countries. In fact, they are very disciplined, because economy thrives in order, in a place where there's order. Where we are going, if we don't do anything about it, and I'm talking about all of us as a nation, this is not going to be one person. It is going to be something that we decide as a nation. If we don't organize ourselves, we are going to lose the place that we have, because nobody wants to come and do business in a chaotic environment where there are no rules and where there's no order. People want to do business where things are certain. If we agree with you that you're going to deliver, you deliver. If I promise that I'm going to do this, I do it. If I get a government certificate, I know it is real. If I have a title deed, I know it is real. But if you're in an environment where I cannot be sure that the title deed you're giving me is real, the certificate you're giving me is true, then it becomes very difficult to do business. It becomes very difficult. So that's why we have to do something. But it is nothing to do with capitalism. It has to do with bad manners. It is lack of values, lack of integrity.
There's always the adage. It's become an adage, or it's become a thing that now we say to explain it away, that you cannot legislate for morality. You cannot legislate against bad manners. The long arm of the law, because then bad manners are manifested in certain things, certain activities. We see now the pilfering, we see now the cheating, all of that manifestation of those bad manners. But then along the line, the thing is, it's a mind over matter issue. How are we getting to the point whereby we are now able to turn the hands of time? We're able to turn the needle on that kind of behavior. And I think that's the question that grapples a lot. How do you change that? Until and unless it is an individual mindset change then that occurs, you're unlikely to see the mushrooming of that kind of behavior. How do you insist that kind of thing now occurs in the minds of every individual? It's tough.
If you followed the vetting before I got into this space where I am today, I did actually propose that fighting corruption and the bad manners that we have in this country is not going to be done through legislation, is not going to be achieved through an agency like Anti-Corruption Commission. It is going to be a whole nation approach, where we have Kenyans who believe that we cannot continue this way in every sector, whether it is in school, whether it is in a government office, a private sector, on the roads, everywhere. And we almost start like a movement of integrity, of doing things right, that I'll just not do the wrong thing. I will not pay a bribe to get a service that I deserve. I'm not going to overlap on the road. I'm not going to cheat in exams and all those kinds of things. And it is that which can transform and begin to change the culture. And if we see this at different levels, all the way from the lowest person to the highest person, and it is not just talk, it is actually doing, that is what changes culture. And then the more critical thing is that our children need to be helped from the lowest level at the young age, because some of these things you can only catch them at the young age. So by teaching, by training, but by role modeling, we can actually change and transform this nation into a cultured society. There are nations that are doing that. I mean, there's a clip that was going around about the Japanese children and how they cross the roads and thank the traffic, the vehicles that have given them way to pass and so on. It is something that is inculcated while you're young. If I go back to my childhood, when we were in school, we were taught that you respect anybody who is older than you. Yep. It doesn't matter whether it is your brother or your sister or your parents or your teacher.
Or a stranger.
Or a stranger, you just respected them. If they tell you something, you obey. And that's how we grew up. That's what we knew. And it was kind of almost ingrained in your system that you don't talk back to an older person. You don't answer rudely. Yeah. But these days, you find little children telling you off in a very strange manner, and you wonder, wow, where did this one come from? Yeah. So it's a whole society let me call it movement that may have to be started by those of us who are adults and who believe in restoring our values. So we are looking for value champions in every sector.
I actually think you will not succeed, Chairman.
You think I will not succeed?
No, the movement will not succeed.
No, it will. It has succeeded in other places.
It will not succeed.
So tell me why.
You see, the places you say they have succeeded is what I will ask. Where exactly? Tell me where it has succeeded, why it has succeeded. Maybe after we take the break, Eric?
No, you can tell us now. He has given us an example of Japan.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You see, everything the chairman said, the bishop said, is actually true.
Except?
No, there's no except. It isn't an except. It's an amalgam of very many things that more or less come together and coalesce, and they bring about a certain result. If you look at the time you were in primary school, it was around the same time I was in primary school. Are we saying that the teachers were respected more in our time than they are respected now? And if so, why is it that when we were in primary school and even secondary, what the teacher said, you abided by perhaps even more than what your parents told you? In the communities that we came from then, why were teachers respected as much as they were? Because even the parents respected the teachers.
Very much. I mean, they were the most respected people in society.
Yes. The question is, why? And they were. It's a past tense.
Yes.
Then what happened? See, this group of people whom you gave the power to look and bring up your children, because that's what teachers actually do for all these years. What do you think happens when the position they held and which enabled them to transmit those values we speak of, which would augment the values that the parents had, when that position is devalued? Then what do you think is going to happen in that society? Because everybody goes to school at some point, even if they drop off.
Yes.
So the value system and the place where the support system was nestled was disrupted completely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we see, in my opinion, is an outcome. Now, the other outlaying support system that helped erode it were things like the Ndegwa Commission, the interpretation of it,
and land grabbing by the independence.
Exactly. Precisely. Because in that earlier time, it was understood that when you did wrong, you'd be called out, and you understood it was wrong, and people were afraid. People went out of their way to hide what they did, which was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a time when nobody hides anything.
No.
They more or less dare you to say anything. So I am saying...
So, City, you haven't told the bishop why he won't succeed.
He won't succeed because when you talk about setting up a group of people who will bring about change, and you haven't clearly identified what the problem is and what the solution is, because you've pointed, there's a problem here, there's a problem here, there's a problem here. You see, you are counting on having like-minded people who will pursue the agenda together with you. What is your guarantee that these people are of a similar mindset as you? What is your guarantee that they are not using this as a vehicle to serve their own interests? When you have a perverted society like ours, what are these guarantees? Where we are at, we are because people want to be here. If they didn't, then we would not be where we are. So how do you stop them liking where we are and being in the position that we are in?
Do you agree, Bishop, that we are comfortable, we are happy?
That we are comfortable and happy? I don't believe so. Talk to any ordinary Kenyan. One of the things that is in the lips of almost every Kenyan is corruption. So many Kenyans are involved in unethical conduct and behavior, not because they like it, but because it's their only way of survival, or so they think. You asked me, where has this been done? I don't have to go out there. Right here in this country, I'm sure you were around in 2003.
I've been around since 1958.
I've been around just slightly after you. So we have been around together.
Yes.
2003, when the NAC government came into power, I think things were worse than where we are today, perhaps.
No. Where we are is by far the worst we've ever been.
Okay.
Yes.
Whatever the case, it was bad.
Yes, it was.
It was bad. Now, because there were people who believed that a country can be changed, and they began to do certain things that would put us back on track. I used the Matatu culture. When Honorable Michuki came in and tried to say he's going to tame the Matatu culture and said you're going to sit in a Matatu with a seatbelt on, people laughed. We laughed, because previously the government had tried all means, including introducing Nyayo bus, to try and tame this sector, and it never worked. All the efforts that have been put in had never worked. But when a very systematic way and the championing of it happened, the same Kenyans who you are saying are comfortable said, if you are going to tame the Matatus, we are willing to work for the period that you are doing this. And they worked. Why? Because they were looking towards a better future where they would be in this Matatu, putting on seat belts, sitting comfortably, and so on. So they were willing. They said, okay, we will walk. And they walked.
So then
that helped to bring us back. Let me just still be in the same. That same time, the grabbing of land that was in this country was unbelievable. When Raila Odinga came in as Minister for Roads and said we want to build bypasses around the city, and all the bypasses were full of very high-class houses. We all laughed. We say, you can't bring down that house.
And they were brought down.
Suddenly, people realized that something is happening here, and let's be part of it. And so even ordinary Kenyans were arresting police officers. And this was happening across the board. And the culture of the nation really was beginning to transform and change because there was light at the end of the tunnel, something that people had been yearning for and hoping for, but seemed like it is now coming, and we want to be part of this. And so that put us on a trajectory that was, we were listed in the world as the most joyful and happiest people in the world. Optimistic, you know, in the world. Unfortunately, our politics ruined that opportunity.
That moment definitely was lost.
It was lost. But it is trying to, in answering you, telling you that we got a glimpse that Kenyans are not comfortable with where they are.
So even in that position of uncomfortability,
yes.
Are we saying then that people need a morality marshal? You need somebody
Those are the
who
people
is
calling
going
champions.
to, somebody who is going to stand up and say, folks, this is the way it ought to be. And because of that standing up and expressing this, that it will awaken that stirring that already is resident in the hearts and minds of Kenyans.
Exactly.
We just need somebody to come and say, okay, guys, bring it out. The same way you give the example. People were very uncomfortable with the Matatu situation, did not like the recklessness, did not like the bad manners and the bad behavior. But they needed somebody to come out and say, this is how we are going to operate moving forward. And people will now coalesce around that idea. So what you're saying is that people have a desire to want to behave well.
Exactly.
People have a desire to want to do the right thing.
Right.
But we need somebody who is always, holding that flag and saying, guys, wake up tomorrow morning. Let's remember that this is the way we ought to go. The question is, who is this person?
That person is
Whom shall I send?
Who will go for us?
Yeah.
Let me give you another example. These persons, if you notice that we are mentioning names, not institutions. We are talking about people, not institutions. People who champion the right thing. And this is what I'm saying. If we have these champions in every sector, including you here in the media industry, because we know the things that also happen in your own sector here. Okay? So if you are that champion in the media industry and say, we are not going to allow this in our media industry, we as media people, journalists, this is how we are going to conduct ourselves. You look at schools. There are schools in this country that are known for championing the right kind of values. Okay? And every parent wants their children in those schools because they have strict discipline, they have values. The people who come out of that place, you can see them, they stand out in society. And so why are parents fighting to get their children there? Because they want those things. So that, I was still answering the question that Kenyans are happy with where we are. We are not. We are where we are. We are trying to survive in that environment. But it is a very expensive environment to live in, where if you have to get your child to school, you have to pay somebody or pay something. If you have to get a service, you have to do something. Everything you have to pay for outside of the normal channels in order for you. Sometimes even on the street, you want a parking. You have to pay someone to give you a parking.
Yeah.
That is how bad it is. Who is happy with that? Nobody.
We are not happy, Bishop, and
So,
I agree.
Yes.
That is why we created, when we were writing our constitution in peacetime,
Yes.
we actually sat and had a conversation, a national conversation, and we said corruption, pain point.
Yes.
But when we went further than that and we said, actually the issue is deeper, and it's about our value system. And we wrote a whole chapter called Chapter 6. And then we said we shall have institutions that shall help us in this. And EACC was created.
Right.
Even beyond that, there's one called the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. That was to go to the population, and start injecting this whole conversation that you're having. But all this has been talk for many years. Your predecessor, another prelate as yourself, has said the same thing. Those who have headed the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee have said the same thing. We talk, Bishop. We don't do it.
We talk.
And it's like we're just comfortable talking, releasing reports, talking, releasing reports. Even now as I'm hearing you, I'm not hearing a start date and people in place. And you've been in office for many months now. And as the chairman of the EACC, I am not hearing a solution that we're preferring, that you're saying, this is what we shall do beginning 12th of December.
Thank you.
On the occasion of our Jamhuri. I'm not hearing that. It's more talk.
No, I was answering your questions.
Okay.
I was answering your question. So, so far you have not asked me, what are we doing? You have asked me the state of the nation. So we were really analyzing the state of the nation, which I think we have done, and all of us agreed that we are in a bad place. And the only difference is that where we were not agreeing with him is that he thinks that we cannot get out of it. I think that we can. And that's why I am where I am, and that's why I sit where I sit now.
Okay.
Because of that belief. So
what roadmap have you drawn, Mr. Chairman, to get us out of this place where we are at?
One of the things that we are doing as a commission in the area of values is exactly what I've said. We are going into institutions, we are going into schools, we are going into various organizations, and trying to raise and identify the champions that we are talking about, so that these people can champion value-based living, especially among our younger folk. Now, since we said that you really need a two-pronged approach. One is education, and education helps people to appreciate the value of values, because like I said, there are people who are involved in this because they think this is the only way things can be done. But they need to be helped to realize that there is a better way of doing things. So that comes through education, and we are doing that education process, partnering with various institutions and so on. But at another level, there is modeling. The modeling, you have to have people who can be role models in doing the right thing. And that's where we want these champions and models. Then thirdly, actually, which is part of the modeling, but also showing from a negative perspective, the sanctions on people who do not toe the line. Example that we gave about the roads, for example, is those people who on the roads had their buildings burnt down. And so people realize that you can't go in that direction. Some people are even demolishing their own buildings before you came. So the sanctions is an area that we really also are working on. We cannot allow leaders to just act in bad manners. And you have seen, maybe you have seen or heard us calling people to account on their actions, which are not in line with what you expect of an ethical society. So that is going to be heightened, so that we actually call out people. There's a practice that we have done, we have held in the commission that we now have to change, because we have been talking about people almost protecting their image and so on. But we are saying, no, if you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you? So sometimes we say we have arrested 6 people, or we have caught a senior officer, but we don't give the names. This is to protect the individual from that. But we are finding that while you are protecting the image of this person, they go back and do exactly the same thing. So
You're enabling them.
We exactly. So we are moving from that, and we are now going to say, so and so did this, and this is what we have done about them.
So three-pronged approach.
Yes.
Education, modeling, and of course calling to account the sanctions.
Exactly.
Right? I see it looks like a graduation. Start at the very basic with education and modeling.
Yes.
And then those that fail to be grabbed by that net and they get into the board system, you nab them.
Exactly.
Okay. So when do
But it is all going together.
this?
It's not like we are going to start here.
It's happening together.
It is all happening together. Yes.
When do we the sanction has already started. There are laws in place and all
Yes.
those things, and we see EACC and raids all the time. Modeling and education.
Education is already going on.
How?
We have what we call ethics clubs, integrity clubs within schools, which we want to change into integrity champions within schools, so that the idea of a club is like you are the integrity people, as we can do our thing. So it's not a club of people of integrity and then the rest of the school is. So we want these people who enlist, these children who enlist into this club or are enlisted into these groups to champion integrity. We have teachers who will train in matters ethics and right conduct and behavior within schools. That is already ongoing, and in some of the schools where we have done this has been very, very successful.
For example,
what do you mean, for example?
One of the schools.
Case study.
Right here in Nairobi, we can talk about the Muslim girls right in Pangani. We actually, it's almost all the schools. I don't know
So
that.
these clubs exist in all the schools?
Most of the schools.
And this is the public school system?
It is not just public.
Or across
It is
both?
across the board. It is public and private, all of them. Because they are not public and private children.
Yes.
They are all
Yeah.
our children and in different schools. So we have a whole education department in EACC that champions this. So we work with teachers, we work with schools in different places, and we help them in that area. The other thing that is there that we would like to see come up even better is that there's an integration already that has happened in the curriculum of education that is supposed to entrench values. But you see, things that are not examined are not taken too seriously. So we want to see how that can actually be taken more seriously, whether we can actually move to the place where this as part of the examinable subjects or issues within the school system, because that then will give them the seriousness, and perhaps teachers and students will take this more seriously. But I can say that the whole thing about education on ethics and integrity is already ongoing in schools. Perhaps we have not given it the highlight at national level for people to know that this is happening. But it is not something that started yesterday. It is something that has been ongoing, but we are enhancing.
How do you measure success? How do you know, for example, in Muslim girls, we started this program in this year, and this is now how we are seeing, we are graduating people who are more morally upright and more ethical into our society?
We have stories. We have stories from the schools, from the children, from the teachers, of the changes that they have seen in their children, specific children, or a group of children that have embraced this. So that, like, for example, when during the Africa Integrity Day, Anti-Corruption Day, we had some of these showcasing of children that came forward, and they gave their stories of some of the things that they do and some of the things that have happened, the transformation that has happened in their lives, how they stand up against evils and ills in their schools. And so that tells you that there's a change that is taking place. But
it sounds like it's a soft one. You gave an example of a radical one, Mishuki radical. He said, stop from tomorrow, seat belts in all matatus, a yellow line on all matatus.
Yes.
It wasn't until we are going to champion
No.
those matatus that are doing well, those ones that are not
No,
playing
this
loud
is
music.
We are
those
talking
ones
about
that-
education.
Yeah.
In education, I mean, how do you become radical in education?
We have
Actually,
just
you-
done
actually,
radical thing and changed the entire
Chairman,
education
you
system.
You do. When, of what use is the English language that is taught in schools and Kiswahili and maths and everything else if the person who is being taught is completely left rudderless? Should this not be an integral and an examinable aspect of the curriculum? Because
That is true.
You see,
and that's
look,
what I talked about.
it has to be. You know, this it can't be something that we take baby steps in. The Holocaust is a subject that is taught in Germany. It is taught from the time somebody can understand. It's taught and it's graduated. You know why? They don't ever want people to forget it.
Good point.
Corruption is killing us.
Right?
We have to teach these things so that people know. Instead of the government coming and telling us, if you don't have Maisha Telecard, you cannot get government services. That
is radical.
It's nonsensical.
It's making you get the card and use your eyes.
Because this is the thing that when you're dealing with as I always liken it to when a cancer patient and the doctor is there, oncologist is there. It's not okay. How about we have a conversation with this cancer and see if we can convince it to go away? No. We cut the thing out and then we blast it with radiotherapy or chemotherapy.
Yes.
It's got to be, if we want it to go, that's how
And you want this person to live.
And you want this person to live. Corruption is killing us. Bad manners is killing us everywhere. Everywhere. So in order to deal with this thing that is killing us, it's not spoiling us, it's killing us. We have to be just as radical as the thing itself is.
Very true. Very true.
I don't see another way.
I agree. I agree totally. I agree totally. And I think that is what we are talking now. When we get to the sanction level, that for me, that's where I was talking about the radical part, the surgery that we are talking about, the cutting off. And that is an area that really we want to up our game in. Because if these children that we are trying to bring up in the right way are not seeing examples at the top, and instead what they are seeing and hearing is only negative, you have done zero work. Because children learn more by sight than by hearing. So if they are hearing one thing and seeing another, then we are in a losing game. So the radical part of it is at the top with you and I, who are adults. That's why I was talking about the calling, the sanctions, and so on. So in that area is where we have been dealing nicely with, we don't want to embarrass you, so we will say there's an officer in standard group that has done this and the other, but nobody who knows who that.
Chairman, we're not embarrassing people. We're just saying what they've done.
I'm saying that's the approach we have been using.
Now you're changing it.
Now we have to change it so that
Doing it like the DCI route. Hold a card.
Yes.
Charge, stealing, embezzlement,
Out.
thug.
So you may have noticed that in the last few weeks, that there are people who have been asked to step aside.
Yes.
And yeah, those are some of the things that we are actually doing.
Yep.
Asante sana, Bishop.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.